number one reason a motorcyclist is going to get pulled over is for speeding. Motorcycles are pretty darn fast, there's no getting around that, and some bikes are insanely fast, like leader bikes that can get to over 90 miles an hour without leaving first gear. Most intermediate motorcycles that are just one step ahead of your average 400cc starter bike can reach triple-digit speeds incredibly quickly. As an example, a Suzuki SV650, which is long considered to be an ideal beginner plus motorcycle due to its accessible price and fun but approachable power delivery, can reach 100 miles an hour in a little over 8 seconds. That's like what a commuter vehicle can reach for 60. That's pretty crazy. It is not only easy to ride at fast speeds on a motorcycle, it's also pretty enjoyable. And quick caveat from the Yami Noob legal department, this video is in no way an endorsement of reckless operation of a motorcycle. The information provided is meant for entertainment purposes only. Ride motorcycles at your own risk in accordance with all local laws. Since it is so easy to accelerate quickly and subsequently decelerate quickly on a motorcycle, it takes a lot more reservation and self-control during operation to stay within legal or at least socially acceptable speed limits. It's important for motorcyclists to recognize the responsibility required to not go wide open throttle on a school zone or go 186 miles per hour on your commute into work. Being cognizant of your own speed is essential to not only stay in the good graces of our boys in blue, but also for your own safety. Speed is one of the biggest contributing factors in single vehicle motorcycle accidents, so an easy way to mitigate that risk is to ride within your own limits, hone those fundamentals, and gradually increase your speed when riding. And when it comes to riding beyond the posted speed limit, recognize that there is a time and place for such behavior. Squids are gonna squid, there's just no way around it. So, keep it away from other vehicles, stay off local surface streets, and be aware of the police. You can't be riding 30 above the speed limit all the time and not expect to get flagged. You gotta keep those demons at bay and unleash them in the most controlled areas possible, usually at the track if you're able to, and for the safety of other people on the road, and to keep those points off of your driving record. On a very similar note, motorcycles are often pulled over for anything that can be deemed reckless operation. That could be anything from riding erratically, meaning speeding and passing other vehicles irresponsibly, to popping wheelies. It is really not too difficult to avoid getting a ticket for reckless operation. You just gotta use some common sense. Don't be popping wheelies in a downtown area where there's a ton of other people and other cars and police. Keep the wheelies to a parking lot or a less traveled road. Or if you clutch up a little wheelie leaving a stoplight or something, have a giggle and smile to yourself knowing you got away with it. Everything in moderation, It's one of those keys to living a balanced and happy life. So enjoy those sweet little wheelies and those high-speed pulls, but know that it is a treat, a special moment to be savored. But don't let that type of riding become your baseline for regular operation of the bike. That's just going to continue to increase your risk of getting pulled over. It's important to maintain modesty and discretion. Similarly, be wary of group rides. Group rides can increase your risk of getting pulled over for a multitude of reasons. You get a bunch of hot shot street squids all in one place, you're going to attract a lot of attention. Then you have all the showmanship and one-upmanship that comes from a bunch of testosterone-fueled motorcycle riders all in the same place, which can encourage you to ride beyond your means or take greater risks. Maybe you ride too quickly and take a risky turn, or you pass a vehicle too closely in order to stay with the group, or you bust a wicked dank nooner so your riding buddies will finally acknowledge you as the king squid. And when riding with the group, you can be held somewhat accountable for the actions of those you're riding with. If a cop tries to pull the group over and you stop but everyone else takes off, you might be put in a situation where you have to receive the ticket even if you specifically weren't one of the worst offenders in the group. So again, just use common sense and ride with discretion, and know that there is an appropriate time and place to ride your bike a little more quote-unquote recklessly. It may be surprising to some, but you can even get a ticket for a noise violation in certain areas. These laws are going to vary depending on where you live. Some police officers in certain areas may be pretty laid back when it comes to bikes, or you may live in a city that deems motorcycles as a threat to the peace and tranquility of those in town, in which a cop may look for any opportunity to write you up. So if you're in a quiet neighborhood or a specially dedicated quiet zone and you're rev bombing your bike or creating excessive noise for no reason other than just to scratch the primal urge to wring out that throttle and belt your exhaust sound to the masses, you're kind of inviting a ticket. A lot of modifications to a vehicle's exhaust systems can be considered illegal, whether that's deleting your catalytic converter or installing a super loud race-only exhaust system. Most municipalities turn a blind eye to this sort of thing for whatever reason here in the United States, maybe because it's too difficult to enforce and not worth the hassle to pursue. Even getting a motorcycle inspected with an aftermarket exhaust is typically a non-issue in many states here in the United States, as most inspection stations just want to make sure that your turn signals, brakes, and mirrors work. But if you're being a nuisance and disturbing other people with a super obnoxious exhaust, rev bombing your bike into the middle of the night, you're just inviting the police to take a closer look at your bike and issue a ticket for either a noise violation, disturbing the peace, or ineffective equipment as your muffler isn't doing a good enough job at actually muffling your exhaust. So again, use common sense, respect other people around you, and don't create an opportunity where you're inviting unwanted attention, and your chances of getting a ticket for excessively loud exhausts will dramatically lower. Now, and since we're on the topic of vehicle inspections and ineffective equipment, a pretty easy way to avoid getting pulled over on your motorcycle is to not remove your mirrors and turn signals. Sport bike riders and cruiser riders are pretty quick to start modifying their bikes and doing away with any unsightly or clunky OEM parts like mirrors or turn signals. But if you're going to delete the ugly old ones, make sure you replace with parts that still comply with your local regulations. It's kind of funny actually, so many motorcyclists love deleting parts from their bikes for either weight reduction or aesthetic reasons, but ADV riders actually have the opposite problem. They're not deleting what they deem to be unnecessary components, but actually adding to them. A sport bike rider will delete their clunky turn indicators, and an ADV rider will add hundreds of dollars of unnecessary off-road rally fog lights. And it's kind of funny, I never thought about how different it is. Anyway, in my experience, as long as you're otherwise riding appropriately and not making any waves on your bike, a police officer is probably not going to go out of their way to pull you over just for turn signals or mirrors. But if they recognize you as one of those problem motorcyclists in the community, they may go out of their way and look for any reason to pull you over. And a lack of DOT required equipment is kind of a layup, so make sure your bike adheres to the laws in your states. Some require one mirror, some requires both, some require turn signals, others allow for use of hand signals, so on and so forth. Just make sure you know the laws and you know your rights. This is a Kawasaki Ninja 500 SE, and it could be yours if you become a member over on yammynoob.co. I give away motorcycles all the time. I've given away over 53 bikes at this point, valued at well over $500,000. We've done top of the line bikes, beginner bikes, crazy scramblers, all kinds of things in between, and this new Ninja 500 SE is the new bike we have to give away. Become a member over at yammynoob.co and rack up your chances to win this motorcycle. It could end up in your driveway. Another easy excuse to get pulled over is by having a tucked or otherwise obstructed license plate. The tucked license plate is really the street squid modification du jour. Having your license plate tucked up underneath the tail section of your motorcycle decreases the visibility of the plate and makes it harder to be seen by traffic cameras, toll road cameras, or police that may happen to see you during a bout of reckless riding. So by having your license plate straight jammed up between your tail section or bolted flat against it so it can't really be seen is sort of screaming, hey, look at me, I commit moving vehicle violations on my motorcycle. It's like by trying to be more undetectable, you're only drawing more attention to yourself. Yeah, the big plastic whale tails that come on most bikes to meet DOT requirements are super ugly and dumb. But just install a normal functional tail light that retains proper visibility and proper lighting, and if you can be pulled over on your motorcycle for having a license plate in the proper area but without the proper necessary plate light, you can surely bet that a license plate that is tucked away in addition to an absence of proper lighting can get you a ticket. Lane splitting. We all love lane splitting, except for when you're in court pleading your case to the judge to get your citation dropped or reduced in a non-lane splitting state. Then you nod and agree that it's unsafe and you say, you're right, Your Honor, I'll never do it again. But really, lane splitting is a tricky subject because by almost all metrics, it is astronomically safer for a motorcycle to move to the front of traffic when vehicles are stopped or moving at slow speeds. It doesn't put the motorcycle at risk of being rear-ended by a car driver who's too busy scrolling TikTok on their phone to apply the brakes in time when coming up to a red light. The efficacy or net safety benefit of lane splitting at speeds in traffic at the highways is a whole other story. I don't really buy into lane splitting at 80 miles an hour. But as far as lane filtering goes or moving ahead during stopping of traffic or red lights, it's kind of hard to argue against its usefulness in regards to rider safety. But at the same time, it is still illegal in most US states, though more states like Colorado have recently implemented lane filtering laws. If you're a motorcyclist in a non-motorcycling lane splitting state, recognize that despite what the data says and what the riding community consensus may be, it can still definitely be pulled over if you choose to lane splitter filter where it is still illegal. Maybe if you plead your case to the officer, they may let you off with a warning. You could maybe pretend you're an international person and, it's legal where you used to live in Macedonia or whatever, but still, if it's illegal where you live, lane splitting or filtering is always going to pose the risk for a ticket. For what it's worth, I lane filter and split a lot in Texas, and I've never been pulled over for it. Knock on wood. And lastly, you can be pulled over for riding a motorcycle without wearing a helmet in states where it's required by law. That's pretty cut and dry, There isn't a whole lot of nuance or room for debate. If it's required to wear a helmet on a motorcycle and you're not wearing one, you can and probably should be pulled over. Regardless, you should be wearing a helmet anyway, so if you get a ticket for that, you probably had it coming, And while it might not be illegal or not to wear other riding gear, if you're on a leader bike wearing shorts and no shirt even with the helmet on, you're likely to attract some unwanted attention. A police officer will see a shirtless sport bike rider and think, well, if they're irresponsible enough to be wearing only their skin on a motorcycle that can do near 200 miles an hour, what other reckless things are they gonna do? Similarly, in some areas, it can be illegal to have different things attached to your helmet. So those fuzzy Elmo helmet covers or plastic cat ears or action cameras or Bluetooth comm systems. I think for the most part, these laws are pretty outdated and just stay on the books because it's more effort than it's worth to take them off, but it's something to keep in mind. I mean, I've never heard of anyone getting a ticket for having an action camera on their helmet in the United States, but you never know. Maybe you'll run into a cop who's having a bad day and wants to take it out on you. Who knows? Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Have you ever been pulled over on your bike, or are you a master of discretion, evading all law enforcement activity while still managing to have a fun time on your bike? Let me know down below if you've ever been cited for having a fuzzy Elmo helmet cover. I'd love to hear about that. If you're this far into the video, you must be an elite tier of viewer. Maybe consider becoming a member at yammynoob.co, or subscribe to the newsletter and tune in on Wednesdays for the live stream. Thanks again for watching. I will catch you guys later. Fact: Kleenex tissues were originally intended for gas masks. Goodbye. Keep watching Yammy Noob.